Let me ask you something. How many times have you made someone a priority while they treated you like an option? How many times did you answer immediately but they took hours or days to respond? How many times did you show up for them, support them, believe in them, and give them your best, only to receive the bare minimum in return? See, that's a pain a lot of people know all too well. And the worst part isn't that they didn't choose you. The worst part is that you kept choosing them while they kept showing you exactly where you stood. You kept hoping. You kept waiting. You kept believing that one day they'd realize your worth. But here's what I've learned. People rarely appreciate what they never have to risk losing. As long as you're always available, always forgiving, always understanding, some people will mistake your loyalty for weakness and your kindness for something they can take for granted. But there comes a moment when enough is enough. A moment when you stop chasing. A moment when you stop explaining. A moment when you stop trying to convince someone to see the value that was standing right in front of them all along. And when that moment comes, something powerful happens. The tables begin to turn. Not because you're playing games, not because you're seeking revenge, but because for the first time, they're forced to experience life without the person who was always there. And that's when many people finally learn a lesson they ignored for far too long. Never underestimate the value of someone who genuinely cared. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you stop accepting the role of an option, start recognizing your own worth, and walk away with your dignity intact. Because sometimes the greatest lesson a person learns about your value comes after they've lost access to it. And if you've ever been overlooked, taken for granted, or made to feel like you weren't enough, this message is for you. One of the hardest truths to accept is that being treated like an option rarely happens overnight. It usually starts with small compromises. You answer every call even when they ignore yours. You rearrange your schedule to fit theirs. You give understanding after understanding, excuse after excuse, hoping that eventually they will appreciate everything you're doing. At first, it feels like patience. It feels like loyalty. It feels like love. But over time, you begin to notice a pattern. The effort isn't equal. The energy isn't mutual. The respect isn't consistent. Many people stay in this situation far longer than they should because they confuse being chosen with being needed. There's a huge difference. Someone may need your attention, your support, your kindness, your presence, or your loyalty. But that doesn't necessarily mean they value you. Real value is shown through actions. It shows up in consistency. It shows up in effort. It shows up in the willingness to make you a priority instead of an afterthought. The truth is, people often teach others how to treat them. If someone repeatedly cancels plans and you continue making yourself available, they learn that there are no consequences. If someone only reaches out when they need something and you always respond immediately, they learn that your time can be taken for granted. If someone gives you the bare minimum and you continue rewarding that behavior with maximum effort, they learn that they don't have to do more. That may sound harsh, but it's actually empowering. Why? Because it means you have more control than you think. The moment you stop accepting less than you deserve, the entire dynamic begins to change. Suddenly, your time becomes valuable. Your attention becomes valuable. Your energy becomes valuable, not because it wasn't valuable before, but because you finally started treating it that way. Think about how often people chase approval from someone who has already shown them exactly where they stand. They send another message. They make another excuse. They give another chance. Deep down, they're hoping that one day the other person will wake up and realize their worth. But self-worth doesn't come from being recognized by someone else. It comes from recognizing yourself first. When you know your value, you stop negotiating for basic respect. You stop trying to convince people to care. You stop auditioning for a role in someone's life when your presence should already be appreciated. Instead of asking, how do I make them choose me? You begin asking a much more powerful question. Why am I choosing someone who keeps showing me that I'm not a priority? That question changes everything. Because once you ask it honestly, you begin to see the situation differently. You realize that every moment spent chasing validation is a moment taken away from your own growth. Every ounce of energy spent trying to earn someone's attention is energy that could be invested in your goals, your confidence, your future, and your peace of mind. The strongest people are not the ones who force others to see their value. The strongest people are the ones who recognize their value even when others don't. They understand that not everyone will appreciate what they bring to the table. Not everyone will recognize their loyalty, kindness, intelligence, or love, and that's okay. Their worth is not dependent on another person's awareness. Imagine walking into a room carrying something priceless. If someone mistakes it for something ordinary, its value doesn't decrease. The object remains exactly what it was before. The only thing revealed is the person's inability to recognize what they're looking at. The same principle applies to you. Someone's failure to appreciate you does not make you less valuable. It simply reveals their limitations. There comes a moment when you must make a decision. You can continue fighting for a place in someone's life, or you can start building a life where your happiness isn't dependent on their choice. You can continue accepting scraps of attention, or you can demand the kind of respect that aligns with your value. You can remain available to people who only see you as an option, or you can become unavailable to anything that diminishes your self-respect. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you stop accepting less, you begin attracting more respect, more confidence, more peace, more meaningful relationships. People who genuinely value you don't need constant reminders. They don't need endless chances to show they care. They show it naturally through their actions. Being treated like an option may not have been your choice in the beginning, but remaining one is. The day you decide that your time, energy, and heart deserve better is the day everything starts to change. Because the greatest transformation in life happens when you stop asking others to recognize your worth and start living as though you already know it. One of the most powerful things a person can do is step back and become silent. Not out of anger, not out of manipulation, not to play games, but because they finally realize that constantly proving their value to someone who refuses to see it is exhausting. There comes a point when every unanswered message, every canceled plan, every broken promise, and every moment of being taken for granted starts to reveal a painful truth. No amount of effort can make someone appreciate what they are determined to overlook. Many people spend months or even years trying to convince someone of their worth. They become more available, more understanding, more forgiving, and more patient. They think that if they just love harder, support more, or sacrifice a little longer, the other person will finally wake up and realize what they have. But appreciation that has to be forced is not appreciation at all. Real appreciation happens naturally when someone genuinely values your presence. The problem is that people often become accustomed to what is always available. Human nature has a tendency to overlook things that seem permanent. When someone knows you'll always answer, always forgive, always wait, and always return, they can begin to treat your presence as something guaranteed rather than something valuable. Not because you're unimportant, but because familiarity sometimes blinds people to the blessings they already have. That's why absence can be such a powerful teacher. When you're constantly there, your contribution becomes invisible. Your kindness becomes expected. Your support becomes routine. Your loyalty becomes assumed. But when you step away, suddenly the things that once seemed ordinary become impossible to ignore. The morning message that used to arrive without fail is no longer there. The encouragement they counted on is gone. The listening ear they relied upon is silent. The person who always made time for them is focused elsewhere. And that's when reality begins to speak. You see, your absence creates space for reflection. It removes the distractions. It removes the convenience. It removes the comfort of knowing that you'll always be there no matter how little effort they invest. For the first time, they are left alone with the consequences of their choices. What's interesting is that many people don't realize your value while they're benefiting from it. They realize it when they no longer have access to it. Think about how often people miss someone after they've left. Suddenly memories become clearer. Conversations become more meaningful. Moments that once seemed small now feel significant. Things they barely noticed before become things they wish they could experience again. This doesn't happen because you've changed. It happens because distance creates perspective. When people can no longer take you for granted, they are forced to see what was always there. But here's where many people make a mistake. They start hoping for that realization. They begin waiting for the apology, the message, the phone call, or the moment when the other person finally admits they were wrong. They imagine the day that person comes back filled with regret and understanding. The danger in this mindset is that it keeps your focus trapped in the past. Your absence should not be a strategy designed to make someone miss you. It should be a decision designed to protect your peace. Because whether they realize your value or not, your life still has to move forward. If they understand what they lost, that's their lesson. If they never understand, that's also their lesson. Either way, your responsibility remains the same. Continue growing. One of the strongest signs of maturity is learning to walk away without demanding recognition. Not everyone will understand your value. Not everyone will appreciate your sacrifices. Not everyone will acknowledge your efforts. But chasing validation from those people only keeps you stuck. True confidence comes from knowing your worth even when nobody applauds it. It comes from understanding that your value isn't determined by how loudly someone praises you. It's determined by who you are when nobody is watching. When you stop chasing people, something remarkable happens. You start reconnecting with yourself. The energy that was once spent worrying, overthinking, and waiting becomes available for something far more productive. You begin focusing on your goals, your passions, your healing, your future. You start sleeping better because you're no longer wondering why someone isn't texting back. You start smiling more because your happiness isn't tied to another person's attention. You start feeling stronger because your confidence is being built from within rather than borrowed from someone else's approval. And often that's when the unexpected happens. The very people who overlooked you begin noticing your absence. Not because you demanded their attention, not because you begged for recognition, but because your silence spoke louder than your words ever could. They begin to wonder why you're no longer available, why you're no longer chasing, why you're no longer settling. And in that moment, they finally see what was standing in front of them all along. But by then, something has changed. You've changed. You've discovered that your greatest power was never in convincing someone to value you. Your greatest power was realizing that your value existed long before they recognized it. And once you truly understand that, you stop fearing people's departures. You stop fearing rejection. You stop fearing being overlooked. Because you know something most people spend years trying to learn. The people who are meant to appreciate you won't need your absence to recognize your worth. But for those who do, your absence may become the lesson that your presence never could dot. When someone hurts you, ignores your value, or treats you like you never mattered, one of the first emotions that often appears is the desire to make them feel what you felt. You want them to experience the disappointment, the confusion, the sleepless nights, and the emotional pain that you carried for so long. It's a natural reaction. After all, when you've invested your heart, your time, and your energy into someone, being taken for granted can feel deeply unfair. Many people become consumed by the idea of revenge. They imagine proving the other person wrong. They dream about becoming successful enough, attractive enough, or accomplished enough to make that person regret everything. They tell themselves that one day they'll have the last laugh. One day the person who overlooked them will finally understand what they lost. At first, this mindset feels empowering. It feels like motivation. It feels like strength. But if you look closely, you'll notice something important. When your happiness depends on someone else's regret, you're still allowing them to control your life. They may no longer be physically present, but they're still occupying space in your mind. Every achievement becomes about them. Every goal becomes about them. Every success becomes about proving something to them. And that isn't freedom. That's emotional attachment wearing a different disguise. True strength begins when you stop living for the reaction of another person. Think about it for a moment. If you build a better life simply to make someone jealous, what happens if they never see it? If you work hard only to earn their validation, what happens if they never give it? If your confidence depends on proving them wrong, then your confidence is still connected to their opinion. And anything connected to another person's opinion can be taken away. That's why self-respect is so powerful. Self-respect doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need revenge. It doesn't need someone else's approval to exist. Self-respect simply says, I know who I am and I refuse to accept less than I deserve. That mindset changes everything. Instead of focusing on getting even, you start focusing on getting better. Instead of spending your energy plotting revenge, you spend your energy building a future. Instead of replaying old conversations in your head, you begin creating new opportunities for yourself. You stop asking, how can I make them feel bad? And you start asking, how can I make my life better? That's where real transformation begins. The people who achieve the greatest growth after heartbreak are rarely the ones seeking revenge. They're the ones seeking healing. They understand that carrying resentment is like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere they go. It slows them down. It drains their energy. It steals their peace. Eventually, they realize that letting go isn't something they do for the other person. It's something they do for themselves. Because holding on to anger keeps you emotionally connected to the very situation you're trying to escape. Now, this doesn't mean you pretend the pain never happened. It doesn't mean you excuse disrespect. It doesn't mean you allow people to walk all over you. In fact, self-respect often requires the exact opposite. It requires boundaries. It requires standards. It requires the courage to walk away when someone repeatedly shows you that they don't value you. The difference is that you're walking away to protect your peace, not to punish them. That's an important distinction. When your actions are driven by punishment, you're still reacting to them. When your actions are driven by self-respect, you're responding to your own needs. One comes from pain, the other comes from wisdom. Have you ever noticed how the most confident people rarely spend time trying to prove themselves? They don't feel the need to win every argument. They don't feel the need to convince everyone of their worth. They don't feel the need to chase people who don't appreciate them. Why? Because confidence gives them something that revenge never can: inner peace. They understand that not everyone will recognize their value. Not everyone will choose them. Not everyone will appreciate what they bring to the table, and that's okay. Their worth doesn't change because someone else failed to see it. Imagine a person standing in front of a mirror every day, waiting for the mirror to tell them they're valuable. No matter how long they wait, the mirror can't give them what they already possess. Their value exists independently of the reflection. The same is true in life. You don't become valuable when someone acknowledges you. You don't become worthy when someone chooses you. You don't become important when someone regrets losing you. You already are. The healthiest form of growth comes when you begin building your life around that truth. You invest in yourself because you deserve it. You pursue your goals because they matter to you. You develop confidence because it improves your life. You create happiness because your peace is worth protecting. Not because you're trying to send a message, not because you're trying to make someone jealous, not because you're trying to prove a point, but because you finally understand your own worth. And here's the beautiful irony. The people who spend their lives seeking revenge often remain stuck in the past. The people who choose self-respect move beyond it. One stays focused on what happened. The other stays focused on what's possible. One remains trapped in old wounds. The other creates a new future. At the end of the day, revenge might give you a moment of satisfaction, but self-respect gives you something far more valuable. It gives you freedom. Freedom from bitterness, freedom from validation seeking, freedom from the need to prove yourself. And once you experience that kind of freedom, you'll realize that the greatest victory was never making someone regret losing you. The greatest victory was becoming the kind of person who no longer needs their regret to feel complete. One of the biggest misconceptions people have after being hurt is believing they need to make someone suffer in order for justice to be served. When a person takes your love for granted, wastes your time, ignores your efforts, or treats you like you're replaceable, it's easy to think that the only way things become fair is if they experience the same pain they caused. Many people spend months imagining that moment. They picture the regret. They picture the apology. They picture the realization finally hitting the other person. But life has a different way of teaching lessons. Most of the time, the deepest lessons don't come from punishment. They come from consequences. There is a huge difference between the two. Punishment is something you actively try to create. It's driven by anger, resentment, and the desire to make someone hurt. Consequences, on the other hand, happen naturally. They are the result of choices. Nobody has to force them. Nobody has to plan them. They arrive on their own. Think about it this way. If someone neglects a friendship for years and eventually that friendship disappears, the loneliness they feel afterward isn't punishment. It's the consequence of failing to nurture something valuable. If someone repeatedly ignores opportunities and later struggles to succeed, that struggle isn't punishment. It's the consequence of their decisions. The same principle applies to relationships. When someone repeatedly overlooks a person who genuinely cares about them, they may not realize what they're losing at first. In fact, many people don't. They become comfortable. They assume the other person will always be there. They grow accustomed to receiving support without reciprocating it. They enjoy the benefits of someone's loyalty without fully appreciating the value behind it. Everything feels normal because the person they rely on is still present. The problem is that people often underestimate what they have when they believe it's permanent. When someone is always available, their presence can start to feel ordinary. The phone calls become expected. The kindness becomes routine. The patience becomes predictable. The emotional support becomes something they assume will always exist. But nothing in life should be taken for granted. And eventually, reality reminds people of that truth. When the person who has been giving, caring, supporting, encouraging, and loving finally decides to step away, something changes. Suddenly, the comfort that once existed is gone. The support system is no longer available. The emotional safety net disappears. At first, some people don't notice. They're distracted. They're confident they'll regain access whenever they want. They assume things can always return to the way they were. But time has a way of creating clarity. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and slowly the absence becomes impossible to ignore. That's when consequences begin doing their work. Not because anyone is seeking revenge, not because anyone is trying to make them suffer, but because they're finally experiencing life without something they once took for granted. The encouraging messages are gone. The unconditional support is gone. The person who listened when nobody else would is gone. The person who celebrated their victories and stood beside them during difficult moments is gone. And for the first time, they are forced to confront a reality they never expected. They lost something valuable. What makes this lesson so powerful is that it comes from experience, not words. You can tell someone you're worth 1,000 times. You can explain your feelings over and over. You can beg them to appreciate you. But people rarely learn through explanations alone. People learn through experience. Sometimes the lesson that your words could never teach is taught by your absence. This is why you don't need to spend your energy trying to make someone regret their actions. Life often handles that part on its own. Your responsibility is not to become someone's teacher through suffering. Your responsibility is to protect your peace and honor your value. Too many people remain emotionally trapped because they are waiting for the other person to understand. They tell themselves they'll move on once the apology arrives. They'll heal once the regret appears. They'll feel better once the other person finally admits they were wrong. But that approach gives away your power, because your healing becomes dependent on someone else's behavior. And that's a dangerous place to live. True growth begins when you stop making your future dependent on another person's realization. Maybe they'll understand one day. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll regret losing you. Maybe they'll never admit it. But none of those possibilities should determine the direction of your life. Your happiness cannot wait for someone else's awakening. Your confidence cannot wait for someone else's approval. Your future cannot wait for someone else's regret. The moment you understand that, everything changes. You stop focusing on what they're feeling. You start focusing on what you're building. You stop wondering whether they're thinking about you. You start investing in yourself. You stop hoping they'll finally recognize your value. You start living as though you already recognize it. And here's the remarkable thing. When people truly experience the consequences of losing someone valuable, the realization often arrives when it's least expected. Not because that person demanded recognition, not because they fought for validation, but because genuine value becomes obvious once it's no longer available. That's the lesson consequences teach. They reveal what comfort once concealed. They expose what familiarity once hid. They make people confront the reality of what they lost. But by that point, your focus should no longer be on their lesson. Your focus should be on your growth. Because the ultimate goal isn't making someone feel the pain they caused. The ultimate goal is creating a life so healthy, peaceful, and fulfilling that their choices no longer control your emotions. If they learn from losing you, that's their journey. If they regret taking you for granted, that's their lesson. But your lesson is even more important. Your lesson is understanding that you never needed revenge to prove your worth. Your value was always there. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away, let consequences take their natural course, and continue building a future that no longer depends on someone else's recognition. At the end of the day, life is not asking you to become bitter, and it's not asking you to become cold. It's asking you to become aware of your value, aware of your energy, aware of where you invest your heart. Because once you see clearly, you stop begging for what should already be given freely. Respect, consistency, effort, care. These are not rewards you earn by suffering through inconsistency. These are the basics of any real connection. And if someone couldn't give you the basics, then understand this. It was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their capacity. Now here's where your power really begins. You don't walk away to make a statement. You walk away to protect your peace. You don't stop responding to make them miss you. You stop responding because you finally respect your own time. You don't disappear to create a reaction. You disappear from situations that were slowly diminishing